Welcome to A Window on SAHMRI, where we take you inside South Australia's independent not-for-profit health and medical research institute. Each episode, we get to know the people driving our life-changing research, getting into what motivates them personally and how their work is delivering a brighter, healthier future for all. Joel, tell us about growing up in Cuba.
Oh, it was a lot of fun, actually. So, like every other kid, I have a lot of freedom there. So in Cuba, the actual kids are like king. I have a lot of freedom. There was a life quite different from here. It was a life that all the kids were like in the street playing with each other. We play, with marbles or baseball, which is the natural sport in there. All the neighbors were outside, taking care of each other. So we go to school, came back, mom sent us out, and we were quite safe playing around. That's as a kid. Then as a teenager or adolescent, I really enjoy it as well there. There's a lot of folklore in there. There's a lot of like dancing and parties, and I really have a lot of fun, a lot of nature as well. Pretty keen into nature, so I did a lot of like snorkeling and spearfishing. It's quite healthy, Cuba, to live and to grow up, especially in the era that I grew up, which the country was in a little bit better shape than what it is now. But yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Sounds like a fun place.
Yeah, it was
dancing and playing games and all the good stuff.
Yep.
So it must have been hard to leave then.
Yeah, kind of you get used to it already. I've been out since the year 2000, so like 20-something years. But yeah, I guess you grow up and you made your life in the place that you are. Made my own family here after a while. It's been a bit of a journey, actually. I didn't went from Cuba, came from Cuba straight here to Australia. I finished my uni degree over there. That was in 1999. And then after that, after working for a year and a bit there, I decided to migrate, and I migrated to Chile. I have a cousin there, and she said, if you come in here, you can try. We help you just to to get up in your feet. After a while of being there, contact a friend that I have from uni, and she mentioned that there is in the lab that she was just working in the University of Chile in Santiago. There was a position, so the supervisor that she had has a job in there. And it was quite different to what I had done in uni.
Because you've done microbiology.
I had done microbiology in Cuba. So this was more working in the cell death. So cell biology, understanding how cell death die. I went and I met the guy, and then I say, look, actually, I have not much idea about this, but I'm willing to work hard, and I'm a hard worker, so I can, catch up and learn and hopefully contribute to the lab. I don't know what the guy saw in me, maybe because of my friend, he had a good opinion of my friend. Or I don't know, I imparted some confidence or some
like your honesty.
Yeah. And then he gave me the job. It was really good. So that was the first sort of like research job that I have as a research assistant. And I really like it. I had to work hard because I need to
learning from scratch.
Learning from scratch sort of thing. But they were very supportive. My supervisor there, Felipe Barros, and the friends, my colleagues in there, they were very supportive. So to the point that I really enjoyed what I was just doing, I fall in love and I wanted more. So then I decided to take it a step further and just challenge me a little bit more and do a PhD degree.
So what was it that you found so interesting about it?
It's just the way that you do science. So I'm very inquisitive as a person. So I always liked, since I was a kid, knowing how things work. I just get like a clock or a radio and just pull it apart. Always kind of have my mom in her toes because I was always getting in trouble about my curiosity. But I grew out of that. And then I found there in Chile, when I was just working, that I could do that for a living. The research that I was just doing allowed me to be inquisitive and to challenge myself and investigate how things work, how the human body works, and how it functions.
And science is a great puzzle.
It is a great puzzle.
You can't really solve it.
Exactly. So I get basically, it's like being myself, but doing that for a living and being paid for it. So yeah, my inquisitive nature, I think, is the thing that just put me into this path of like being a researcher.
So then you were thinking, I'm going to do cell death stuff now instead. And then I'm going to go to Australia as well. What was behind your decision to go to Australia?
It was always an exotic place to go. Well, I discovered a couple of things during the research assistant job as a scientist. One is that science in general is communicated using English. So it's the universal language of science. So if you write an article that other people in France or in Japan gonna read, that's in English. if you go to an international meeting to discuss your results, that's in English. And my English wasn't there. So I thought, all right, let's, if I'm going to do this challenge, let's learn that in the way as well.
So to progress your career, you had to learn English somehow.
Yeah, that was a must that I realized that I struggle with reading papers or writing the home papers because it wasn't fluent in the language. So America was very maybe convenient because of location, but never wasn't very interested. And Australia, I always like all the movies that you see, Crocodile Dandy, all the crazy things that you have in here in terms of nature-wise. So I say, why not? If we're going to do it, let's do it in style. So I contacted a few people in here in Australia that did some research that was similar to what I was doing there in Chile. And one of them, Professor Barrett, here at Flinders University, said, yeah, you could be a good addition into the lab. So he encouraged me to apply for a scholarship, which I did. And that's gave me the means to come here to Australia. And
were you disappointed when it wasn't very much like Crocodile Dundee in Adelaide?
I was mind blown, actually. I really like it. Yeah, everything was like big, spacious, and clean. And the character of the people was quite similar to Cuba in terms of like were joyful and open and willing to help. Not much the experience that I have in Chile. I think maybe because of the history, they were a little bit more enclosed, and I kind of was missing a little bit that side of things. So I really like, I fall in love immediately when I came to Australia.
So it was what it was cracked up to be.
Yes, and more.
Beautiful.
It's still, yeah.
And so that was Stuart Brearley, who also works at SAHMRI, that you got in touch with then, or that was later?
No, that was later. I guess like when you finish your honors studies, you just go straight into your work in research. But for me, it didn't happen like that. I kind of like took out the two that took me like 10, 12 years, first starting from Chile. Then the PhD, which was with Barrett, Greg Barrett at Flinders University. And then when I was just finished there, I met Stuart Brierley. He was a senior postdoc in the Visceral Pain Research Lab, which was located at the Royal Hospital Diane, the IMBS. So he had just got a NMHSC grant and was looking for a new postdoc. We met in another colleague lab doing some experiments. And then he just mentioned that possibility, and he said, look, I work in the gut, we work in visceral pain. We are interested in to know why people that have chronic painful disorders, they experience chronic visceral pain. I say, well, I really don't know much about it, but I'm pretty keen, and I'm a hard worker.
So you developed a bit of a habit of this, hadn't you, where you went from one area to a completely different one that you didn't really have much experience in,
Exactly.
But you found it to be fascinating, or you just something about it, you knew that's what you wanted to go into?
Yes. So I think we had good talks before I started working in the lab with the steward. And then I guess he saw some techniques and things that I had learned that could be valuable to be in the lab, or maybe my optimism.
It's just your charm.
I don't know. It's so bad. Yeah, I think we make a very good team from the beginning. So that was his first grant. Then was myself and then another girl working there, Andrea. That was back at the Royal Adelaide Hospital, but then in 2014, we just moved to SAHMRI. And then ever since we have been, growing, we are like 8 or 9 people in the lab now, without counting students. Sometimes I like 2 or 3 students floating around. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where I go. I think when I got to that point to working in the lab, it all came together. All the previous experience that I had before, the techniques that I learned, and then learning a new thing, which was really interesting on. Just click. Yeah, it made me be a researcher forever. That's what I'm doing, and I will keep doing.
And chronic pain's your focus now. Tell us about the personal family connection that you have to chronic pain and endometriosis specifically.
Yeah, so I do have. So I have 2 sisters. I'm the boy of the family, and they both suffered of like chronic pelvic pain when they were growing up. Then later on in life, they were diagnosed that they have endometriosis, and I kind of still remember seeing them, especially my older sister, curled in bed with a lot of pain. That didn't let her go to school or going out with the friends to have fun. That always like marked me. So at the beginning, when we started working with the steward in the lab, it was more work related with the gut. So what happened with people that have pain coming from the gut, and that's associated with diseases like irritable bowel disease, inflammatory, like irritable bowel disease. then I thought about just pushing my own line to research pain related with endometriosis. And that happened through the encouragement and support of my supervisor.
You wanted to switch from IBS, looking at irritable bowel disease and irritable bowel syndrome, to endometriosis because you had this family connection and they're both chronic visceral pains. So you figured, I can use what I'm learning over here to research IBD. I can take that and do endometriosis instead.
That is exactly. So due to this family situation that I have, that I was vivid in my mind, I thought, well, this could be a good opportunity. Just learn the research that we had done in the gut that can be equally applicable to diseases like endometriosis. And so that's what I just decided doing. And I've been working in that in the last 4 years.
So why is it so important to you to work on this issue and to try to come up with a new therapy for women who are suffering with endometriosis?
It is a terrible disorder. So, I mean, basically, it affects around 11% of the women worldwide. And the treatments are pretty drastic and they're actually not very efficient. So, you can treat the disease by putting the women on hormonal treatment, by giving the pill. But that's not good in the long term, especially if you want to form a family and so forth. The other way of treating this disease is like removing these lesions that are formed inside the peritoneal cavity.
Surgery.
With surgery. And that could be quite drastic because basically by the time that the women start developing these lesions to the time that they are being diagnosed with the disease, it can be like 7 years in average. So all throughout that time, these lesions are growing and they could be quite significantly big. In that case, the surgery is quite invasive and you have to remove sometimes even the whole uterus. So basically the treatments that are now are quite invasive and they compromise the fertility. So what we wanted to do is do something different. We want to find the first step in the pain, which is the nerves that innervate these organs that are affected during endometriosis. And we wanted to know how that works. We wanted to know how the signal that is being sent at any given time into the brain has changed, and that's why you perceive pain. And we want to attack that, to target that, to be able just to block that signal and then offer relief. So that's basically the strategy that I have in the lab.
And what have you learned so far about how that all works?
Well, it's pretty interesting. So these nerves are innervated all the organs, and they are formed by different channels and protein that basically, like in the brain, they, through electrical stimulus, just send information from one neuron to another one. This communication is a bit bigger, so it goes from the periphery, which is a particular organ like the female reproductive tract or the bladder or the colon, and they go all the way into the spinal cord and in the brain. Now, how that circuitry works is governed by these proteins or ion channels, for example, that are sensing this pain. So they activate, they send the signal into the brain, and then you feel that. By knowing what sort of channels are involved in this process, we can then apply pharmacological treatments and block them. Or by knowing the pathway that they work, we can intervene in different steps of these pathways and then stop that signal for traveling up and for the women's feeling.
So this is specifically focusing on the pain element rather than stopping the lesions actually growing in the first place. That's something different?
Yes and no. So that's the first step. But then by knowing exactly how all these lesions develop, for example, there is a big inflammatory environment during these lesions, and this inflammatory environment directly affects the nerves, but at the same time allow these lesions to grow. One of the strategies that we are assessing is how to reverse this process by stopping the nerve growing into those lesions. So basically, if we can have like a double strategy by stopping how they grow.
The nerves are linked to the lesions.
The nerves are linked to the lesions.
Okay, so the nerves are the key.
Yes, the nerves are the key. So we attack the nerves that are growing into those lesions, and then we are trying to attack the signal that travel through.
We fix both problems.
We could fix both problems.
So what are the barriers to progressing in this area of research?
I guess like time, funding, it all takes time. So this is like a big puzzle of the puzzle. We are one of the pieces of the puzzle. We make a lot of effort to try to investigate these little components within the whole scheme. We form groups, we get collaborators that work in different areas, clinicians on board to translate our discoveries that we do. Maybe one day we just like can translate this into a clinical trial that hopefully can help, and that's the aim of the work that we do.
Because ultimately you're talking about creating a new drug.
Yes, a new treatment based on maybe a drug or a combination of drugs, but that's the whole aim. The goal is just creating a drug that can be effective, that without the need of surgery, you can treat this pain, you can stop these lesions from growing and calm this nerve, and therefore just offer relief in the endometriosis.
Which would change so many women's lives.
So many women, I think it's like 11% of the women worldwide that suffered of this disorder. And it's quite crippling. They would stop them to do their chores, their day after day life. They stop them to go to work. They stop them to have a family. So it is a significant problem, which is quite underestimated. So, and it was dismissed. So because of this happening inside you and the women's, and you cannot see it, they just blame it that there was
period pain
and that sort of thing. They were hysterical, but that's not true. There is a whole amount of things happening, these lesions growing, and it's excruciating pain that they're going through. And that wasn't very acknowledged until very recently. Actually, the health minister in the year 2000, he just like put a big campaign to acknowledge this, to increase the awareness of this disease, give a lot of funding, which I benefit from. Actually, I have applied to a fund from the government that gave me like 3 years funding to research this issue. I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, well done. So what are you hoping for in terms of a time frame that you might be able to progress towards clinical trials? I know it's impossible to really predict that, but if you could say generally.
The sooner the better, but I don't think that would be in the near future. So maybe 5 years we can start.
Okay, but it's not decades away.
No, it's not decades away. No.
And you want to be someone who's at the forefront of making that happen?
We would love to.
Yeah, well,
we'd love to.
It's a great goal to have, and it would make such an impact if you could. And it sounds like you're already starting to really understand how those pieces fit together, but it's not a simple thing, is it, to actually translate it into a therapy?
It is not. But we're getting there. So I guess through our research, which we disseminate by publishing, I got contact with this by this French group, which is study in this particular pathway. They do actually have a drug to treat cancer, but the way that this drug acts, which is very similar to endometriosis, we thought that we can combine it together and repurpose this drug for the treatment of endometriosis. And I had done some preliminary experiments already, and it looks like it worked really good. So hopefully that will fast track this sort of treatment. So we have put a patent together with this, which is just now going, and hopefully that will translate after we really study the whole mechanisms of how this treatment acts through. We can take it a step further into hopefully a treatment.
That's the ideal, isn't it? When there's already a drug available on the market that can be used for another application and cuts the wait time significantly. That would be great. So how does working at SAHMRI help your research?
Oh, it helped a lot. I don't think I would be able to do what I do if I wasn't at SAHMRI. So I guess it had one of the best places that I have found in my wander around, in terms of like having the right scientific community and the right infrastructure to the research that I do. So there is a lot of core facilities in there that allow to do everything. So you don't have to have everything in your lab. You go to level 5 and then you can do this particular experiment without having to buy the whole equipment. But also the community of people that is in there. So you can brainstorm with them. You can discuss things. You can go to seminars that SAHMRI organize and learn a lot of things. It's also placed in a very good place in the North Terrace Health and Precinct, which will help a lot in terms of like having the UniSA and Union Family, the hospital, another placenta just coming
The
around.
collaboration is very
The collaboration
unique.
is very unique. The infrastructure that I have access is best known. But also SAHMRI support a lot of the researchers, a lot of the research that we do as we make career investigators. And for example, like these very things that we are doing in here, I normally won't be able just to do this unless I write a paper and I put it in a scientific journal. But not many people gonna go and look at that. They may be looking at this a bit more. So the support that they do, for example, like as part of the Bright campaign, is remarkable. So I'll give you the chances to express what we do for people to know, and maybe in the future to get some help back. Some people that be interested to help and support our research. Yeah, as I say, this is unique from SAHMRI, at least in my experience, and I won't be able to do the work that I do if I wasn't there. It's fantastic.
I guess it's what every scientist wants, is a great team and a great problem to work on solving.
Yeah, and having the support of the institution. And I think I have both, the three of them.
And that's what's kept you in Adelaide?
Yes. Well, Dad, the climate, my wife, my kids, is the whole lot. I'm not going. I just putting roots in here little by little. So,
so you would have never seen yourself laying down roots in Adelaide, having grown up in Cuba?
I have no idea what Adelaide was.
Yeah.
When I grew up, I knew Australia, I knew Cocodrilo Dandy and the other things, but I have no idea what Adelaide was. You go where life take you, and then, yeah, depending how you feel, you stay there. You grow up, you evolve. I'm a very different person than I was before, I guess. Yeah, but Adelaide, it's good.
I'm
good
glad
place.
you chose Adelaide. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
And what do you like to spend your time on outside of work, in your rare bit of free time that you have?
In the rare bit of, it's very rare between work and my kids. They suck out of my time. But I do have some hobbies. I have some guilty pleasures. I love making my own beer. I love drinking it, but then I love making it. And that's actually kind of like a bit of experiment as well. Is what we do.
You can't stop doing science.
So I had a mate, I have a good friend from work, and he was keen in doing all of this. I used to do my own wine before, but then he got me into beer. So we started just like putting our equipment together and fermenting and trying all of these yeast strains and all of that. And it turned out really good. So I developed quite of a passion for that, and I have my own cake and fridge in the backyard. And
cool.
Every time that I can.
So it tastes good.
I think so.
You try to convince your friends it's just as good as
it tastes good. It tastes good. My benefits, my neighbors love it, and my friends too.
So. Oh, they get free beer. That's good.
I do a little bit of fishing as well. I used to do a speed fishing in Cuba, but too many sharks in here and too cold the water, so that's no good. So I'm more
just with the rod.
With the rod. With the rod.
On a boat or the jetty?
Oh, the jetty mainly, or just going to Ponolanga, to the river mouth, or down to the Coron, that sort of thing.
And camping as well?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I do that by myself or with the kids. So, I mean, when it's a little bit remote, I go without them. They're small, 5 and 9. Although the 9 years old is just saying, come on, take me with you, which I think I will do the next summer. But yeah, camping is the great thing.
Where do you go camping?
Oh, we go local a lot. We go a lot to the other peninsula, to the bottom, to the Innes National Park. Because of the kids, we haven't traveled too much in the camping, but I go a lot to the Coron as well, to camp over there. It's great.
Okay.
On the
so
wild.
You make sure you get some space away from work.
Yes.
Beautiful. Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story, Joel. And it's so cool that you've come all the way from Cuba to Adelaide, and then you're studying such an important area of research that we desperately need some new treatments for. And I'm really glad that you're working on it and you're part of the SAHMRI team. And yeah, it's great to chat to you. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Cheers.
If you want to learn more about SAHMRI and the researchers working to build a brighter, healthier future for you and your family, head to samhri.org.au.